Yeah, welcome guys yet again to another video. In the last video we worked on the registration aspect of this application where we can register a user. So if I enter the Camto, last name Remivera, email should be remivera@mail.com, and password is password, and I click on register. So it tells us sign up was successfully done. You can see it has successfully registered this user, and it also sends the token for us. So in this video we're going to be looking at how we can log a user in. But before we talk about logging a user in, we would have to create our dashboard component, which is going to be a protected route which the user cannot access unless he is logged in. So in order for us to be able to do that, we'll have to come in here, and something I've been using since in this video, and I'm currently feeling a bit guilty that I did not talk about it from the beginning, is this particular package here, React Native / react-redux extension, right? I think this should be this one. Yes, this one. Single extension for React Redux and GraphQL. I think it basically helps us in component scaffolding, either this or this. So I just want you to download the both of them. I think it should be either this or this one. Just download the both of them and try and see which of them helps in scaffolding of components. I can't really remember. So without much talking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scaffold first the functional component here. And this functional component is going to be called dashboard. And I'm going to have a h1 tag here. And this h1 tag is going to say, here is the dashboard, right? And now I'm going to save that. And I'm going to add this to our app.js. So I'm going to import dashboard from components and dashboard component. And we just need to pass that here to our route. And the path is going to be /dashboard. The component is going to be the dashboard component. So in our browser, if I go to /dashboard, it's going to tell us here's the dashboard. But we don't want the user accessing this particular route just anyhow. I want to protect this route. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at storage.getItem. Let me be sure. Let's see if that our user token exists. So user, yes, it does exist. So let's just remove that. Local storage, just remove item. And yep, oh, mistake. That remove item, we want to remove the user. And yep, it has removed that. If I do local storage dot get item again, and I try to get the user, you can see it returns no. So we have removed the token that exists in our local storage. So what we're going to do now is, in order for us to be able to protect this route, we have to create a custom route. And our custom route is going to be a component called private route. So I am going to create that component here. All right. Right in this components folder, we're going to have a component here, and we're going to call this private route.js. And this is going to be a functional component too. So I'm going to do, let's save that first, RFC, and here we have our component, our private route. And for this particular private route, I'm going to get rid of this return statement here, and I'm going to import, I want to export the constant, not export from here. I'm going to export this directly here, and we are going to import we're going to import two things, and these things are going to come from React Router DOM, and we're going to be importing the route and redirect because they'll be useful for us here. So what we want to do here now is we're going to pass the component as a parameter of type component, and the component as a parameter, and we want to destructure this component and get the rest of its property. And we are going to pass the route here, which is responsible for routing, and we're going to pass all the rest of that component that we have destructured here, and we are going to render something, and that is going to take the props. And what we are going to be rendering is really simple. We're going to say local storage.getItem, and we want to get the user item. And now if the user item actually exists, we want to redirect the user to the component that he requested for. All right, and we're going to pass the destructured prop. So let's just say if it's dashboard, we're going to redirect the user to that component. But if it doesn't exist in the local storage, we're going to redirect the user to, all right, we're going to redirect the user to our home component. So path name will be set to home, path name will be set to our index component, and we're going to pass the state, which is going to be our props.location. So basically our location, our browser location, and that should be just about that. And we are getting an error here. Why? That is because we haven't closed this, right? And this render prop, this is not supposed to be so. I'm actually making this mistake. Yep. And then this is supposed to be wrapped around this, sorry. And we still get another error. So what is the error this time around? We are missing a comma here. And what is this? So let's just go through it a bit and see where the error is coming from. And I think the problem is because we are not wrapping this as we ought to wrap this, because this route has a closing tag, and now that should do. So now that we have created our private route, we are going to use our private route in our app.js to protect this dashboard route. So we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to change this, but first let's import our private route. So we're going to import private route, and this is going to come from components slash private route, and we're going to change this here to private route. And now if I save that, it tells us expected an assignment, blah blah blah, on private route. And let's say this is on line 4 and line 5 of private route, and we can change that. Let's see about that. And it's still telling us expected an assignment or function call on line 5. And to fix this second error that is crying on line 5, what we just need to do is change this to a bracket. All right, change this to a bracket, save that, and the error goes. And now we can head back to application, and if I try to access the dashboard component, it's going to redirect me back to the index. All right, so now let's head back into our app.js and go to our login component, and time to log in our user. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to get rid of this no validate. All right, and we are going to add required here, so that this is required for the email as well as for the password too. This is required, and this should be type of email, and save that. And we are just going to go to our register component and copy a couple of things from here. So we have our form, we have the required fields, but let me just check first if this works. So if I click on login, we have to change that button to a type of submit. So let's just get down to the button and change this to a type of submit. Save that. And now if I click on, it tells me please fill in this field. Enter SS at invalid email, and enter ads@mail.com password, and click OK. So that works just fine. Let's just head back to our React application, and on this form we are going to add an event handler, and we're going to call the onSubmit, and we want to call a function here, and that function is going to be called handle submit. All right, so we will create that function at the top here. So we're going to say handle submit. And first of all, we want to prevent the default behavior. So we're going to say e.prevent default, and we're going to log console.log ready to log a user in. Save that, and it says handle submit is not defined, and that is because we are dealing with a class-based component and not a functional component. So we're going to use this keyword, and once we have saved that, we'll come over here and let's just enter an email, enter a password, click here, and it logs ready to log a user in the console. And now we can just get back to our application here, and we are going to set the state. So right in the constructor, we're going to pass the props. We'll call the super, pass the props here, and we want to set the state here. We're going to say this is the state, and this should be equal to email as a string, password as an empty string also. Now that we have that done, we are also going to attach event handlers to our input elemental text field. So here I'm going to attach an onChange, and this is going to have this dot handle change. I'm going to copy this too and paste that in here, this dot handle change, and we are going to create the handle change method here by calling the handle change, and we are going to e.prevent default to prevent the default behavior. And for the handle change, the same thing we did to register component here. So let's just go back. This is a set state. We're going to set the state in our login here. So for those of you who are just coming in and watching this login video and who did not watch the registration video, basically what we are doing here is we are mapping the value of the, or we are targeting the ID of this component. So let's set the ID first, and the ID must be the same thing with the state. So let's call this email, and now let's call this password. So basically all that is happening here is that we are passing the state and we are mapping the state to the ID, and then from there we are now able to get the target value and then store it as a value of the state. So now when I save that and I just get to our handle submit function, and I can then say console.log this.state, save that, and if I come back here and I enter email, I enter a password, click on login, yep, you can see it returns the email and the password for us in the console. So now once we have successfully done that, we are now going to start off by importing a couple of things here, which has to do with Redux. And the first thing we're going to import is going to be connect, and connect is going to come from react-redux basically. And after we have imported connect, remember that we have not yet written anything in our auth service to help us consume our API for our login. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call const login user, and the second thing we're also going to pass is not just the credentials but also our browser history. So I'm going to call this, or basically let's just call this history props, props history, just whatever. So this will help us for redirection. And basically what we're going to be passing is going to be the props history. This is the props.history from our component. So what I like to do now is I like to just copy this. Yep, and paste it here. So basically we are, why is there an error here? Let me get rid of this first. Save that. And yep, we're getting an error because of this. So paste that and that should be fine. Now we are instantiating the HTTP service which we created, and this should be user slash, let me just get back here, go to our API route and slash login. So now let's get back here, and this is going to be user slash login, and that's just about that for this. So we would then go over to our auth actions, and in our auth actions we are going to create a function that is going to be responsible for logging in a user. But before we do that, we're going to import from, we're going to go to our services and auth service, and we're importing auth, we're importing login user. And now that we have imported login user, here we are going to say export a constant, export const, and I like to call this login user 2, a function that is going to be called login user. And this function is going to take two parameters. The first parameter is going to be the user credentials. So let me call this credentials. So I almost typed new user there. And then the second parameter is going to be history, or basically the browser props history. And we are then going to dispatch an action, and so we are going to return another function that carries the dispatch. Okay, so we're going to dispatch an action here, but first of all we are going to see if our credentials, because basically we want to check first of all to see if the password length, credentials.password.length, the length of the password is meets one of our requirements, which is 6, that it must be greater than 6 basically. So if it's less than 6, we want to dispatch an action, and we're going to dispatch this action here, which says short password, just like we did when we're doing sign up, and we'll have short password. Then if the password is not short, then we can now call our service, which is our login user service. All right, our login user service, and our login user service takes the credentials and our history, browser history. So I'm going to pass the credentials and our browser history. All right, and it's returning a promise. So this is going to be the then, and our response, and we just want to log to the console our response, console.log response. And now we are going to say if response.token, or let me just do what I did here. All right, yep. So let me just copy everything from here to here, and I am going to paste that in here. Get rid of this. So basically what this is saying is if our response.token is not null, then local storage just set item, and we'll have to set this. Then we'll have to dispatch a type of, not sign up success, but let's change these two to login success, login error. And then the last, if there's an error, is going to dispatch a code error. And also we'd like to also log our error to the console too. So console.log will log our error. So once we are done with our auth actions, we would want to get down into our auth reducer. And in our auth reducer, we're going to add some new actions here. So let me just copy this. Some new actions here. And this first case is going to be login success. Login success. And I think I missed out on something here. Once we have checked to see if the token is not null, and we have set the token, we want to actually redirect the user to dashboard, to the dashboard component. So to do that, we are going to do the history, which we passed as a parameter, .push. So this is history, is actually this.props.history. It is a property that helps us manipulate the browser history. So history.push, we are going to go to /dashboard. All right, so now let's get back to our auth reducer. And in our auth action, that would mean dispatching login success, login error. For login success, and the second here, okay, is login error. Code error will always take the same message. So let's just call this login error. And now for login success, our response message would be, response message I will say, login credentials are correct, redirecting you to dashboard. Or no, let's just do redirecting you to dashboard. To dashboard. Right, directing you to dashboard. So that is going to be our login success. For our login error, we are going to action.error.message here, and we can save that. All right, so now that we have set up our reducer, now let's go straight into our login component. And in our login component, we are still having this error that is saying passing identifier login user has been declared on line 30. And this is coming from auth actions, and it's telling us on line 30 that login user has already been declared. Oh, and that is because we are using login user here. And why am I login service? This must be some stupid mistake. Oh, we have login user here, and we also could define this function as login user. So let's change this to user login. I said pass error identifier login user has already been declared. Attempted import error auth service. Yep. When did this one actually change? My goodness. So let me go into auth service, and yep, let me copy this, and let's paste that here. I wonder when this one actually changed like that. It's crazy. And then we get another error saying import error sign up is not exported from store actions of actions. What was that? Where did I make that mistake? And this is supposed to be sign up. Yep. So honestly, I have no idea how this file changed. When it changed, honestly, it's just creepy and crazy. So back to where we were. We have successfully dispatched all our actions. Basically, we just declared user login, a variable that takes the credentials and takes the browser history, and it returns the dispatch for us. And if credentials is less than 6, we dispatch an action of short password. Else, we pass the credentials and then the browser history. This is a props.history, and then it returns a promise that we get the response. If the response or token is not equal to null, we set that in our local storage. We dispatch a type of login success. History.push redirects us to the dashboard. And else we just dispatch a login error response or a code error. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm going to get back straight into our login.js. And in our login.js, we are going to import, from, let me get to my register component and copy that. But this time around, we're not importing sign up anyway. We are going to be importing user login. So we're going to import user login, yes. And now that we have imported user login, and we're going to remove this export default class, and we are going to map our state to our props, as well as mapping our dispatch to our props. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, let me not type this, let me just save some time. Since I've already done this in the register, I'm just going to copy here to here and head back to the login, and right after the end of the class, yes, that's the end of the class, paste that in here. And our map state to our props is the same thing, auth response. Map dispatch to our props is going to change. This is not going to be sign up, but this is going to be, let's create this method here, and this is going to user login, right? And the dispatch action is going to be user login. All right, so what I can finally do here is on handle submit, I'm going to say this dot props dot login user, which is, sorry guys, which is the method that we created here, user login, not login user, user login, sorry guys. So this is props dot user login, and remember in the user login we are passing two things, the credentials and the browser history, and I didn't pass that here. So this is going to be credentials and history, and we're going to do the same here, credentials and history. So let's head back here, and we are going to pass our states, which is our credentials, and the next is going to be our history props. So this is the props dot history, and now once I save that, I'm getting an error coming from our register. It says okay online 89. Okay, oh sorry, that is not supposed to be register. The component is login. So let's change that here to login, and now save that, and yep, everything works just fine. So let's head back to our application here. Let's try to register a new user. So the first name is going to be Brandon, last name is going to be Kevin, email is going to be kevin@mail.com, password is going to be password. So kevin@mail.com, password is password. Let's register this guy, and we get this redirecting you to dashboard. So let's fix that. Let's head back here, and that is coming from our, let's get to our actions first. And the reason that why that is showing us that is because we are calling this login success here instead of sign up success. So let me call this sign up success and sign up error. And let me be sure that that's what it is called in the reducer. Sign up success and sign up error. So let's head back here and let's go to our console and let's do local storage dot remove item. Yep, now remove this item. So this item has been removed. The user token has been removed. And now let us register another new user here. Calcius, last name Breakford, email breakford@mail.com, password is password. Now register that and sign up was successfully done. If I click on login and I try to log in with breakford@mail.com and password, and I click on login, it redirects us to dashboard. You can see it redirects us to dashboard. But then there is a problem in the sense that it is not showing us that message which says redirecting to dashboard, the state. So where that problem is coming from is in here. Let's go to our login. And we forgot to add that message. So what I am going to do now is right here, I'm going to the structure of response, and this is going to come from this dot props. All right, and we can then do what we did here in here, right here, copy that, get back to our login, get down here and paste that here, save that. And now let's head back to so what I want to do now is, let me just remove the token in our local storage. Go to console, do local storage dot remove item user, and refresh, and that redirects me back here. And now let me try to sign up breakford@mail.com, password, login, and now it has redirected us to the dashboard. And even though it has redirected us to the dashboard, if you notice, it did not show the redirecting to dashboard message. And the reason why it didn't show that is because this happened in a flash, like it was really quick. So just to show you guys that message, what we can do is we can set a browser timeout here. Can set a timeout here, and this timeout will be for 3 seconds. And then we are going to get this history.push and put that in here and save that. And now if I get down here and I remove this dot remove item of user, yep, remove this. Now it has removed that. Now if I refresh this browser, it takes us back to login. Now let's log in with Breakford again, breakford@mail.com and password. If I click on login, you're going to see redirecting dashboard for 3 seconds, and boom, it logs us in. So that's just about that for this video of logging in a user. In the next video, we are going to be looking at creating our dashboard, basically designing our whole dashboard structure before we then go further into, that's the video after that, to add a new contact.